Good morning and welcome to It's a New Day Weekend Extension. Kim Kennedy here, welcoming you to this special edition of It's a New Day with original programming. Today I'm really excited because we've got some people that we want to introduce to you if you don't know them already, and you just need to know them. But first, let me start with an introduction. We are welcoming Andy Meehan for Congress. And Andy is running in Bucks County. He's actually running against the Republican incumbent, Brian Fitzpatrick. Andy, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kim. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. And some of our listeners heard that and thought, why is a Bucks County businessman running against the Republican incumbent? Andy, you would answer that listener and say what?
Well, they use the term Republican very loosely in this context, I say, because there's very little evidence that Congressman Fitzpatrick is a Republican based on his voting record. And so I got into this race to pull Republicans together and unite the party around our shared values and behind our president, neither of which the current congressman stands up for.
That's so true. And we'll get into more details because not everybody is aware of it. But I'll tell you what, Andy, back in 2016, I used to go over to Newtown once a month for a women's meetup group. And I'm driving through 202, and I'm going through, I'm in Doylestown, then I'm crossing over 263, and 413 goes around into Newtown. Andy, I'm seeing these signs. Blew me out of the water. Anti-Hillary signs. Signs that are saying, sick of taxes. One sign that said, Hillary for jail. I'm driving and I'm like, what is this? This is not an area that I would expect to see these signs. So I thought to myself, maybe it's a bit overblown that Bucks County has gone liberal. You're from that area. What would your response be to that? Because I wonder if Brian Fitzpatrick goes to that length because he thinks that if he was a conservative and spoke conservative, that he would lose the support.
Yeah, Bucks County is a mixed district, and I don't know, I've heard it, tossed around that it's an R+1, but recently I've heard more that it's swinging the other way with people coming in from Philadelphia and New Jersey and making it more blue as we come. But there are many, many bastions of conservatism still left in Bucks County, and they are crying out for people to stand up and fight for what they believe in, and that's why I'm getting into the race.
I appreciate that. Andy, you are a businessman.
That's correct. Financial advisor by trade, independent financial advisor. I help people with their investments and their retirement plans and their insurance. And I've done that on my own for 20 years in Bucks County. Mm-hmm.
So you've done it successfully.
Absolutely. Yeah. I understand how the policies of the government affect people, how they make a living, save their money, budget, invest, all that kind of stuff. So I'm one of the people. I understand that.
You understand that tax and spend is not a successful formula to prosperity.
Well, no. When I sit down with clients in my financial business, we look over their budget, how they spend their money. And if they spent their money like the people in Washington spend it, they'd be all out of their homes and broke.
And you were so concerned when you saw, as you said, a Republican, and used that term lightly, acting like a Democrat. You were so concerned that you looked around and said, somebody should replace him, and why not me? And I would second that and say, why not you? You're an articulate man. You have a passion and a burden. And you, like us and like many of our listeners, agree that, we have to be the sane party. We're not the perfect party, but the sane party, the one that tries to deal with realities, just certain things in life, like the law of averages, what comes up must come down, et cetera, et cetera. And the idea, as you just said, that you can spend and spend and spend and there will be no repercussions is just a lie. And we know enough now at this point that is one of Saul Alinsky's talking points.
Oh, yeah.
How to destroy a nation.
Put the people in debt so you can tax them more and get them under the yoke of government.
Indeed, yep. Indeed. And we're resisting that and fighting that, as I know you are. Give us some examples of the type of leader that Brian Fitzpatrick has been.
Well, gosh, there's such a long line. If you go to my website, meehan2020.com, we've compiled a expansive database of all of the congressman's votes and statements. And everything from calling President Trump a racist, along with Nancy Pelosi and 3 other Republicans in July, to fighting him tooth and nail against providing funding for the border wall, standing up for things like the Equality Act, which would have, spelled the doom of women's sports by making it illegal to preclude gender, dysphoria suffering people from competing with women. The long list of items, and not least of which, Kim, Montgomery, is the fact that he is absolutely silent on the targeting of President Trump by his own FBI. He is biased from all of his time spent in the FBI, and he is part of the Trump resistance. And this is something that I just couldn't stand by and watch our president have this guy on the ticket with him in 2020 to get in on his coattails when he is completely anti-Trump and anti-us, the people who voted for Trump. He is the rock star of photo ops on Facebook, but you never see him having a photo op with a Trump supporter or the president.
So for the sake of honesty, it would be great if he would run as a Democrat because in essence, not by talk, by his actions, that's what he is.
Absolutely. And if you look at his record, there's no question that he should be running as a Democrat.
We would hope that the Republican Party in Bucks County may have suggested that to him. I don't know that, but I know Republicans. I have family who live in Bucks County. They're not going to vote for Fitzpatrick. I told them about you. They want to know more about you. Andy, what are you doing to get the word out about yourself, and how can we help?
Great. Yeah, well, I've been up and down all around the county making personal appearances and doing, radio shows when I can find them. And just meeting a lot of people, talking in coffee houses, doing meet and greets at public establishments, doing one-on-ones with prominent people in Bucks County. Obviously, I'm on social media, and I have a great presence on Facebook and my website. And these are the things that we have to do because we don't have a big sack of money like the congressman to buy up advertising and put out, the reams of printed materials that they do with their incumbent money, their incumbent cash. So that's what I'm trying to do, just trying to connect with the people, because I think that once people learn about me and who I am, that they'll feel that they have somebody who's a voice for them and that they can trust and is going to have the energy to go to Washington to fight for what they believe in and fight for our president. And that's what I am, a fighter. And so that's what I'm going to do.
Do you have a record of that, Andy, that you can direct listeners to say, this has been my course of life. I've been involved in local politics, and this is what I've helped. These are causes that I've been involved in and helped fight for. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, as far as being involved in local politics, I haven't really been that involved other than, I did work on Dean Malek's campaign in 2018, and I knocked on a lot of doors and worked the polls for that as well. I'm a fiercely independent businessman. My financial practice is completely independent. I like doing things that bring joy to my life with my wife and my boys. I do a lot of outdoor activities. I'm a big skier. I'm a fisherman, kayaker. I play in a rock and roll band in Bucks County. I'm a very visible figure with that, the Well Strung Band. And I'm very well known in the community for my activity with youth soccer, which I coached for many years in Bucks County, and refereed games as well. And so that's kind of who I am. And I decided to get into politics because I think we need regular people and not these career type of, politicians and cronies that are in there, and they get in there to get along and stay and get reelected, and they pander to this side and pander to that, and they don't stick up for values. They don't have any principles. They blow in the wind of politics, and I don't do that. I'm a very principled individual.
I always find it interesting, Andy, that many of these politicians leave office far wealthier than when they enter. And it's not like that they have a business and they opened other branches so they can say, well, this accounts for increased income. That's a puzzlement to me.
Yeah, I signed a pledge to limit my term to 3 terms in the House. That's 6 years. And I think that the rest of them should do the same.
I agree with that. When you look at Donald Trump and you look at his policies, what do you agree and disagree with, and why?
I agree with the president on most of the things that he comes out with. So putting America first, putting American workers first, reducing the regulations from the government, getting out of the way of business and industry, reducing taxes, empowering the individual. I'm on board with all that. The one thing I did differ with the president on is I wasn't happy that we decided to spend more money in the last go-round with the budget. I understand they wanted more money for the military, but I'm all about reducing the size of the federal deficit and the federal footprint and returning dollars back to lower levels of government, bringing jobs back to America, bringing American soldiers back to America, bringing American companies back to America.
You're a swamp drainer.
I am, and I'm deep in it in Bucks County, I'm telling you.
Love it. That's great. This is wonderful stuff. And I agree with where you're going. And with the amount of opposition to President Trump, it's nothing short of miraculous as to what he's accomplished. And we can't help but think in the second term we could really blow out and make greater progress with like-minded folk who think like Trump and who would assist him in making things happen. Sounds like you're that kind of person that we're not seeing currently demonstrated by the occupant right now of PA6. Is that your?
PA1 is where we are, yeah. And that's very evident in the weak-kneed and impotent defense of the president and this whole impeachment nonsense that the congressman came out with last week on his interview in Wfyl, where he basically said, in the lack of further evidence, I do not recommend impeachment, but we need to get to the bottom of this, was his words.
The transcript.
That's
There's
correct.
The bottom.
There is the bottom. But he didn't want to get to the bottom when it was all about the Mueller report, when we know that they didn't even look into the Steele dossier or the origins of this Crossfire Hurricane investigation. He didn't want to get to the bottom of that. In fact, in the same breath that he says he wants to get to the bottom of the Ukraine thing, he then comes out and touts his support. Still, last week, he's still supporting the Mueller investigation. So he's all part of this Get Trump cabal. And make no mistake about it, Brian Fitzpatrick is not an ally of President Trump or any of us Trump supporters.
Did you hear that, listeners? Some of you who might say, they're beating up on this guy, they're ganging up on him. Andy on his website, let me repeat again, Me in 2020, the number's 2020.com, has compiled a list of the things that he has said and done. So he is simply using his record, and that is your motivation for why you're doing what you're doing. Otherwise, I think you're a good citizen who would not enter unless you saw a crisis, and there is one in Bucks County.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at my life, it's pretty cozy in Bucks County. I didn't need to get into a political race right now. I'm 55 years old, but I'm rather young and youthful, and so I have the energy to do it. But it's not typical that somebody like me would get into politics unless they really felt strongly about what was going on, and I do.
And we can see why, because you painted a very clear picture of a very dangerous congressman who is not representing. It's rather deceitful to run in a party that is, when you read the tenets of the Republican Party, and he's not one, he really should go to the party that better represents his views and his beliefs. You could at least respect the man then, Andy.
Yeah.
So we're glad that you've stepped up to the plate. The biggest thing right now, listeners, that Andy needs is probably financial donations.
That's correct. Yep. You can go to the website, mein2020.com, and send us what you can afford to give us. We need it because the congressman has a big bag of cash that he's accumulated from people out of the district and special interests and lobbyists. I've only collected about maybe $8,000 so far since my campaign began. The congressman has $800 and some odd $1,000 in the bank. I have more individual donors that donated to my little campaign than the congressman does with his entire cash haul.
Well, we all know how the story of David and Goliath ended, and there are those of us who believe that it can happen again. And this man, I don't know how he's going to run on this record. And I hope he'll debate you, Andy.
Well, I sure hope so.
And I know you'll let us know because we'll want to hear that. We have a lot of Bucks County listeners. Like me, I have friends and relatives. I will be contacting them. Listeners, this is a grassroots thing. One thing I learned, Andy, especially in the last year, is you have to abandon the idea that politicians are looking out for your liberty. You, as the individual, have to look out for your liberty. And I think that must be a part of the reason why you're running.
Yeah, I think it was Ben Franklin told the woman that met him in the street after they came out of the conference back in 1776, whatever it was, and she said, "So, do we have a monarchy or a dictatorship?" And he said, "Ma'am, you have a republic if you can keep it." And we have to fight. Every generation is going to have to fight for our liberty because we see the creeping influence, the centralization of power in Washington D.C. and it's getting ever worse. And the president was sent there to drain the swamp, and we need to put more holes in the bottom of that thing so that it gets done because he's on his own.
You're right. And I would ask you to speak to a younger person who could be listening and say, I think socialism is to be preferred over representative republic, over liberty. How would you respond to them?
Well, I would encourage them to look through the annals of history and find one instance when it actually worked.
Venezuela, anybody?
Yeah. Death, famine, starvation.
You think we're corrupt now? The corruption in communist countries. And look, let's talk about Hong Kong. Look at how they're being manhandled as they fight for liberty.
That's right. And they're waving American flags in the streets while the ones over here are waving black Antifa flags. That's
just crazy, folks. And we're going to keep injecting reality into the conversations. Andy, I know you are. So tell us about, let's switch over to what do you have coming up? Where can we go hear you? Tell us about your agenda. How much have you, what does your area cover, first of all? What territory? Is it just Bucks County?
PA District 1 covers all of Bucks County, and there's a sliver of Montgomery County that runs on the north side of the county, on the eastern border with Bucks County, from, I guess it's like Percy down through Horsham Township. Okay. So it's all of Bucks County. And my agenda is classic Republican values: life, liberty, opportunity, and justice. We've gotten away from these things. The party has gotten away from these things. Our congressman has gotten away from these things. These are the things, the foundational principles that Republicans think of when they think of what they want their representatives to be doing. So life is pretty self-explanatory. I'm disgusted by what I see in some states passing these, horrific abortion laws. And the government got themselves involved in that, and they shouldn't have.
Making a lot of money, aren't they?
Yep. Liberty is empowering the individual and restraining the power of the government, draining the swamp, limited government, less taxes, more power to the individual. Economic opportunity is all about lowering regulations and taxes, bringing businesses and jobs back to America, and empowering individuals instead of empowering the government. And finally, justice is equal justice under the law. What we've seen and what we still see going on right now is nothing short of a silent coup attempt to take out our president.
That's exactly
what it is. And our congressman is silent on it. And in fact, he works against him. And we voted for President Trump in 2016, and we don't want our vote stolen away by corrupt bureaucrats in the FBI, the CIA, and the intelligence communities. I use that term loosely as well.
Touche, Andy. I'm going to move to Bucks County and vote for you. And I'm going to, if I could live.
Good. We need more Republicans moving into our district. It's getting overrun by people, fleeing the policies of Jim Kenney.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are excellent at defending liberty, explaining it. And we just need to give you more opportunities, find opportunities for you to speak. And people can hear you, they would vote for you.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get some impediments out of my way and just let me go do what we should be doing. The establishment, Bucks County, doesn't want to hear from me. Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader, was in Bucks County 2 weeks ago stumping and raising money for Congressman Fitzpatrick. And as recently as 2 days ago has come out blackballing me, basically, encouraging consultants not to work with my campaign and saying that he's going to do whatever is necessary to keep the district, to win the district.
Does he know you?
He does not know me, and that's, I wish that before, guys like Kevin McCarthy would come in and back Fitzpatrick, they would look into talking to what his opposition represents and who they are. But they've thrown all their muscle behind him, and the rationale that they use is that they want to keep the district in R. We got to keep this one on our side. Well, it's not on our side because the guy that we have in there is not an R. He votes like a Democrat. They told us the last time around, look, go to the polls. We know you're not happy with Fitzpatrick. Hold your nose and vote for him because we don't want the communist Scott Wallace getting in. Well, we all know what happens when you hold your nose, right? You suffocate.
Anymore.
And this is what the Republican Party is doing to itself. We're suffocating ourselves by backing these kind of candidates.
Andy, Rush Limbaugh said, and I've never forgotten this, when you articulate conservative values and practices, they win every time.
Yeah, we got to make the case. We got to stand up and fight and make the case.
When you tell people that we want to get the government out of your way so you can pursue life, liberty, and happiness, you can make your path in life. When we tell people that one of the biggest lies ever passed on is that someone else will live your life for you, someone else will provide a living, someone else will provide, it's just not true. And we look at Cuba, and we look at Cambodia, and USSR, and China. Really what we can call communist Marxists, I think, are some of the biggest shysters ever. Shakedown artists. Am I exaggerating?
No, in fact, you're being rather light-handed, in my opinion. Yeah.
So the reason we're hitting this hard, folks, is because we just want to convince people that from the historical record, as Andy said, the other side, the leadership of the DNC is full in on Marxism. We're saying this based on actions and words. This isn't us just throwing things. We listen and we watch. And if those folks ever get total power, Andy, that would be very dangerous for conservatives. Once again, I ask you, am I exaggerating?
No, you're not. And that's why conservatives need to stand up and protect our rights under the Constitution. Our Second Amendment rights are under attack. The Congressman Fitzpatrick has lied to the gun lobby in Bucks County. He promised them that he would support concealed carry reciprocity and that he would protect their Second Amendment rights. And he betrayed them. He did the same thing with pro-life group, and he supports funding Planned Parenthood. And over and over again, the congressman says one thing and then goes to Washington and does the other. And people are fed up with it, and I'm fed up with it.
And I suspect that many in Bucks County are. Hopefully, we're a part of helping you get the word out about you. Listeners, if you're not in his district, but you know people who are, when this podcast gets released, send it to them. Send them to meehan2020.com, Meehan, MEEHAN 2020.com. Let's not just throw our hands up in the air and say, oh, well, the surrounding counties of Philadelphia have gone blue. That's just the way it is. Don't do that. Fight. It's a fight worth fighting. Andy?
That's right. We don't want the same thing happening to Bucks County as is happening all around us. Look at what's going on in Montco. Okay, we've got a great guy who's a conservative running in Montgomery County named Joe Gale. And they do the same thing to Joe Gale. They marginalize him and they try to squeeze him out. And, thank God he's standing up tall and hopefully, he wins again because I think he's very good for Montgomery County.
We also have John Emmons running against Chrissy Houlihan in PA 6. And these people need to be primaried. Enough of this nonsense. Vote for me just because I'm a woman. That's sheer nonsense. Vote for people because they demonstrate that they understand the issues, that they have good ideas, that they are really conservatives, and they're going to fight for those values and principles, whether that be a man or a woman, Andy.
Yeah, this identity politics stuff is something that really gets me twisted up. And can't tell you how many times I've been called a bigot or a racist because I wear a red hat or I say that I stand up for the president. It's ridiculous.
You stand up for what you believe in. That used to be an honorable thing. And in some quarters it still is, and it will remain that way. Andy, with the few minutes we have left, give us your closing remarks. What do people need to know? What do you want them to do? Take it away.
Well, my closing remarks would be that this Republican primary in April is very important because if they don't choose a constitutionalist like myself, a conservative Republican who's been in the district for 30 some odd years and is going to stand up and fight against it, what you're going to end up with is you're going to have to pick between two Democrats in the general election, between the Democrat on the left and the Democrat on underneath President Trump masquerading as a Republican. So unless you want a Democrat as our congressman, again, getting in when our president is going to win in November of 2020, Bucks County Republicans deserve to have an actual Trump-supporting Republican on the ticket with the president. I will be an enthusiastic ally and an asset to President Trump's campaign. The congressman is a big-time liability.
Well stated. We're in agreement with you, Andy. We're grateful that you're running. We're going to do our part to help you win. And listeners, go to Meehan2020.com, MEEHAN 2020.com. And he's going to close us out. Andy is a fun guy, likes to have a good time. Andy, what do you got for us?
Well, thanks a lot, Kim. I appreciate you having me on. We're going to take it out with something a little patriotic here. How about it?
Go for it. That was wonderful.
Thank
Andy,
you, Kim.
Thank you. That was really great. Well, start to bring tears to my eyes. It was an honor to talk to a great patriot. We're going to be talking to you again in the future. Andy, thank you.
I look forward to that, Kim. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. Listeners, stay with us. You're listening to It's a New Day Weekend Edition. We'll be right back after these messages.